Ariel Masson. I've been teaching here at the Glacial School for the past 10 years. I have been contacted in May of 2010 to get in touch with the Cruz Diaz Foundation in Paris. We went there, and that's how I met Carlos Cruz Diaz. We start kicking ideas around, and we talk about information and media, society and politics and quantum physics, and we just talked about everything. He's always wanting artists to expand beyond the limits of the field of art. They told me, okay, go to the documentation center and see what you come up with. So I got in there and I read a whole lot of things. And then all of a sudden I saw this idea that he had done or conceived this labyrinth of deconditioning in 1965, and that he had never really was able to construct it. This is my class. I mean, it was all in front of me. It was like, let's do the labyrinth. And he was, oh yes, you know. It was like reviving an old project, maybe an old dream too.
Es una obra que produce el color en el tiempo y en el espacio. Por lo tanto, hay un tiempo de permanecer en cada color, de espaciarse para obtener los resultados de mutaciones de colores. Esta es una obra que la concebí en 1965 con el propósito de dar otra información, otra noción sobre el mundo cromático. Mira como ya ahora es amarillo aquí.
And notice how this has become yellow.
No hay más huella del rojo.
There's no more red.
Yeah.
Porque el ojo está tratando de encontrar la normalidad de visión.
Because the eye is actually trying to find its normal way of seeing.
Y esto es una obra, como todo arte, didáctico. Todo arte es didáctico. La poesía es didáctica. La música nos enseña a ver lo que otros no ven, a oír lo que otros no oyen. Esta obra pretende enseñarnos a ver el espacio, porque en Occidente tenemos el culto de la imagen y no leemos el espacio. Entre usted y yo hay un espacio. Usted me ve a mí y yo lo veo a usted, pero no leo el espacio que está entre nosotros. Ahora yo quiero, los dejo a ustedes solos para que descubran, me digan qué color es.
So I'll leave you to it for a couple of minutes so you discover and tell me what you've seen. You gotta wander around.
Esto es una obra que no es estética. La estética es producto de una dialéctica entre la situación y el espectador. Es así la situación. Ustedes son los que van a transformar esto en belleza o en desagrado. Porque esto es una obra elemental, el color bruto, no hay forma, no hay soporte estético ninguno, sino una inversión en una situación. Tiene como punto de partida que todas las nociones que el hombre construye, de belleza, de terror, de amor, de poesía, tiene como punto de partida una situación, una fenomenología elemental.
Okay, who wants to? Yeah, so it comes from the fact that originally everything that man feels which is like, dislike, fear. Is that
Love.
feelings? Love. It comes from
Son situaciones fenomenologías.
are phenomenological situations. Actually, yeah, just a situation.
La lluvia que cae,
And rain that falls,
el viento que mueve el trigo,
and the wind that goes through the wheat,
el viento que mueve el pelo de una mujer.
the wind that goes through women's hair, the woman's hair.
Son situaciones elementales que desatan nociones poéticas, de belleza, etc.
Are elementary situations that actually induce thoughts of poetry or beauty.
Y lo estamos viendo aquí, esta es una situación elemental que desata mitos y nociones.
And that's what we're living here. We're living just a situation that it's going to be the origin for other thoughts of maybe beauty or maybe dislike or whatever you want to make.
Bueno, ahora pasemos.
Let's go.
Den la vuelta al revés.
Oh, he wants us to go the other way around so we can experience again.
Véanme y vean a los otros, como todo se desmaterializa, se transfigura.
Why did you choose to have it round and a little bit in a spiral? ¿Por qué escogió tenerlo redondo el cuarto y un poco en espiral?
Porque nuestro propósito siempre ha sido abrirnos. Cuando me hablan de instalación, yo rechazo, porque esto es el originario de instalación. Uno quería modificar el ambiente. En cambio, una instalación es temática, es una metáfora y no una situación. Son metáforas ecológicas, filosóficas, realistas, donde hay un mensaje a descifrar. Aquí no hay mensaje a descifrar, sino experimentar una situación. Es un descubrimiento.
It's a discovery.
Muévanse, caminen, bailen.
Dance.
Maestro, el hecho de que tenga su elementos sustanciales
Mira qué maravilla
Está moviendo.
una transfiguración. Mira el negro también.
Yeah, black too, huh? Black,
Sí.
negro.
Mira qué maravilla.
Work of art.
¿Hay alguna pregunta?
Any question?
Se han quedado perplejos.
Are you in awe?
the fact that he could think about something that affects you physiologically and based on that create an environment is something that I could explore in my work. I feel like he's trying to pull the rug from under our feet and say, guys, you have no canvas, no walls, no nothing. I want to see something really unique coming out of this group. Collaboration, I think, is something I haven't had a chance to do much, and I find it very appealing. I think a concern I would have, if I have one, is time. I feel it's something we will need to meet daily, go to a retreat, and don't have phones, don't have TV, don't have nothing, and really put our thoughts together.
My name is Steve Smith. I'm from Houston, but I've lived all over the place. Primarily I'm a painter, but now I've concentrated more in digital art. I knew when I retired that I wanted to do something else with my life. My mother was a graduate artist and an art teacher. My father's side, they were all architects. That influence obviously was all around me at the time.
Like you, I'm fascinated by color, and because color seems to attract people to it.
Como usted está fascinado por el color, porque el color atrae a la gente.
He's an artist, but he does a lot of business-related things. He's an artist, but he does a lot of engineering/mechanical things with his machines and things of that nature. So he's very multidimensional. He's an unusual person. Well, I think we're all a little bit still up in the air about what that is. I have some ideas. I'm not so sure how that's going to play with the group. Part of this thing is not only the labyrinth, but it's also group dynamics. We got a little bit more knowledge from talking to him about his feelings about it. I think that helped clear things up on one hand, but not so much on the other hand. He basically is saying, hey, here's my philosophy. You just kind of do what you have to do.
Mucho humor.
My name is Edward McCartney. I am from Houston, Texas, and I am a jeweler, metalsmith, and mixed media sculptor. I do a lot of jewelry that sort of stretches the bounds of what adornment is. I do larger sculptural work, which I find sort of a requisite for more narrative pieces, and I usually deal with sort of social, economic ideas with that work.
Yes.
Este se llama Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Ah, somos
Soldados.
un soldado.
The Don't Ask, Don't Tell triangle made up of armament and paint is a statement about the United States policy against homosexuals in the military. And the pink triangle is a symbol used in Nazi Germany to identify homosexuals. So I hope that when somebody sees that piece, they might step back and have another perception of that reality. I've been in the sculpture and metalsmithing and jewelry world for so long now, I thought it would be a great opportunity to experience something new, maybe learn something and break out of my own box. I think a lot of what I do is very intuitive, and I think a lot of what we're talking about in this seminar is very intellectual and very concrete and very conceptual, and I don't know that I often go to such challenging places. It's amazing that someone is so present and so lively at his age and so willing to give of himself and his time to educate and talk to young artists. My thoughts for the Labyrinth have changed. I think that We need to keep it really elemental. I think that was something I heard him speaking yesterday. And to put away and forget everything that we know as artists and start afresh. And that is really daunting.
Sorry, I don't speak in Spanish.
Metal.
Metal,
It's
metallic.
metal.
It's my work is basically about luminance.
Su trabajo es sobre la luminosidad, la luz,
So the use of color and iridescence in the early
sobre
work.
la iridencia y
Iridescencia.
And so that it,
Iridescencia.
as you move through the painting, it has changes, and within the colors change, variations.
Estas son las primeras etapas de un experimento que hizo y usted va a ver unas piezas que tiene en el cuarto donde vamos a ir porque usa pigmentos fluorescentes.
Phosphorescent. So it changes as the light changes. It changes. Absorb the different colors of the spectrum of the white light, and then when the light goes down, they radiate that light.
No, fíjate que no tenemos memoria para el color.
He's saying
¿Qué
that.
color es?
Yeah, he's saying that we actually have no memory when it comes to color because he doesn't even remember what color it used to be. So we don't possess that type of memory.
But it's been great so far, and I'm exploring myself. Well, I was approached by Ariel because she was told by a colleague of mine that my work was very much related to what she was planning to do with the class. And I had a meeting with her, and we talked about a lot of things, and what she was talking about and what I was talking about was so related that I wanted to be part of this. And meeting with like-minded people who think alike, who think of art beyond, simple representation of art, and explore the perceptive or human psychology of art. I was completely mesmerized, especially when he was talking. I mean, it was so perfect. The way he explained it, walking through with him, was completely inspiring. At a point in time, I thought, oh my God, this is amazing, The humility he had and the ideas he brought forward, seeing, our work was much more inspiring. I started working with something like that, but I called it more like a journey or pilgrimage and not a labyrinth. But I think somewhere the idea was the same, how people perceive spaces, how people connect to these spaces, how perceiving, your world outside affects you inside, and how you can, draw connections, how you can create places that would make you understand yourself as human beings. Go within yourself, a search within.
We are in a sleeping society, so this is really a trigger to a very good place to start.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice. The reflection, the thoughts are very key.
Thank you.
Celui-là, j'ai commencé avec des couleurs, avec les horizons, le blanc superimposé. Et puis après, j'ai commencé avec des couleurs.
La base c'est très bien, c'est cohérent. C'est cohérent. La base c'est bien réussi.
Oui. Yes. soon after college. I'd always loved art all through childhood, but I've been discouraged away from it. I'm very good at science and maths, so I majored in engineering. Last winter, in fact, it was extremely cold right here in Houston, unbelievably. And I was having trouble working in the studio because my hands were freezing up, I couldn't get the paint to work right. So for a while, the only way I could work was at the computer. So I would take photographs I had of trees and landscapes, and I'm particularly loving the forest as you go through and the light flickers on and off, both above you and as you look through the trees. Loved that, and I wanted to capture it, but I didn't know where to start. And while I was playing with these shadows and photographs I had on the computer, I produced maybe 15, 20 digital sketches that I felt were finished in some way. And from those, I've started working, transposing those into paintings, into acrylic work. You don't see the trees in there anymore, you just see the shadows, the light, the interplay of colors. I remembered Carlos Cruz Diaz's work from the Color into Light exhibition that had been in Houston about, I think it was early 2009. And I was in the Coma Saturation so long, the guards kept coming in to make sure I hadn't passed out. I loved it, and I wished I could capture all that color and take it home with me. And so as soon as I heard that he was doing a class here, there was no saying no to that. And my first impression was of how warm and friendly he was, how patient. There were so many people coming up to him constantly with photographs, and he was just so nice with everybody. Just to listen to him explain his work, and to explain it knowing that he's explained to artists, because he knows that you'll grasp the concepts and you can go deeper. And it's the first time I've ever been able to sit and ask questions of someone who's lived their entire life in art. I was very intrigued about him talking about our Baroque society and how much we're bombarded with stuff. Perhaps we need to bombard people with ringing phones and other people's conversations and then cut it. So suddenly they'll hear that silence. I think we can do it, but I think we have two main challenges. The first is we only met a few weeks ago. We have to somehow come together as a team very quickly. I think that'll happen. I think it's already starting. I don't lack confidence in that. But I do know that we have a very short time scale too. And the time scale is going to be the main thing.
Trade, and a lot of the stuff that I do is influenced by architecture. I was first influenced by architecture at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston after I attended a lecture. I realized that the world of architecture is a lot more broad than just putting buildings together. I was really influenced by some of the work by Carlos Cruz Diaz and the way the structure of his artwork actually influences the way one perceives it. I thought that a lot of the stuff that he did was really interesting. It was one of those things that you really remember what he did and you want to learn more about it. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized he has a lot to say.
These are your words.
Estas son las palabras de usted. Es una...
I tried to change it, but it was too perfect.
I find it interesting how just only through his artwork, through his physiognomies or chromatizations, that he's able to bring about an entire dialogue about interaction between people, the sociology, the broader scope of not only his time, but how it's relevant today. I hope to gain a broader knowledge of the way different people have used things that they've investigated and things that they've learned. I've studied architecture. I understand the basics of it. What I don't understand is specific things in other fields, and I think that this is going to help me. I envision a massive complex of things. I have this idea of an architectural obstacle course in a way that I've always thought about, and it kind of ties in what they're talking about here, but if I could get just some of those ideas to come through, I think it would be cool.
Entonces hay áreas donde están los tapices que aquí puedes leer Venezuela. también trabajando con los colores. Nosotros llevamos los colores y jugando con las sombras y el movimiento. Sí. My name is Lorena Morales. I am from Venezuela. My artwork is more about an experience with light, shadows, and color. For me, it was a great opportunity. I always have been a big fan of Carlos Cruz, of course. He's from Venezuela, and there he has a really influence in art. Just the opportunity to have him close and to listen to him, the way he thinks was just great for me. Now I feel like really heavy, something like here in my shoulders after we talk with him, because he has really high expectations from us. And it looks like this will be more challenge, and looks like we will need to do a lot of experiments and a lot of learning. Just be prepared mentally and physically for the challenge that we have in front of us.
La Fundación o Carlos Cruz Díaz está, qué expectativa o qué está esperando de este seminario.
Estamos en una sociedad hipervalor. Hoy la música perdió significante, perdió uno de sus grandes valores creativos, el silencio. Hoy la música es un solo nivel de sonido. Quiere decir que estamos solos. No tenemos capacidad para los matices más sutiles. Y ellos, la prueba es que ellos tienen que tener un ruido constante porque se sienten solos. Y así mismo pasa con la visión. Todo está coloreado. No hay silencio visual. Todo está lleno de formas y de objetos. No hay reposo visual para pensar. Por eso digo que somos una civilización de sordos visuales ciegos auditivos. Es precisamente el momento de reflexionar y tratar de volver a las percepciones elementales. Entonces sería tarea de los artistas tratar de volver a las percepciones olvidadas, porque todo lo que vivimos son transposiciones de la realidad y no la realidad misma. Si los artistas se dedicaran a hacer obras partiendo de las sensaciones elementales y hacer estímulos dirigidos al espíritu, podría haber otro punto de partida. Es muy importante en este momento porque mundialmente estamos viviendo la perversión de Duchamp. En el arte existen tres tiempos: los artistas que inventan el arte, los artistas que desarrollan la intención del artista y los que pervierten la intención del artista. La propuesta de Duchamp fue de una gran salud para la inteligencia y para el arte.
How did you come up with the idea of a labyrinth? ¿Cómo es que se le ocurrió la idea del laberinto? ¿Por qué un laberinto?
No es necesario construir el laberinto, sino hacer un recorrido por los sentidos. Si uno se pone a observar el comportamiento del árbol, la cantidad de acontecimientos que pasan, uno de esos pequeños acontecimientos puede hipotéticamente transformarse en un discurso. Cuando comencé mis investigaciones, tenía claro que tenía que comenzar por lo que no era arte, porque si uno comienza a hacer arte con las ideas que están en juego, está muerto antes de comenzar. Por eso hay que buscar fuera de lo que es el arte para encontrar algo que pueda ser correcto. Y arte no como criterio estético, sino arte como un mensaje de apertura al conocimiento, porque el arte es conocimiento, el verdadero conocimiento. Atención, las ideas no son arte, son los conceptos. Todos tenemos ideas. Yo puedo echarle algo aquí y digo que eso es el diluvio universal. Entonces, ¿no? Que tenga una coherencia histórica en relación a la historia para poder tener una base para partir de nuevo. Atención, esto es muy serio.
And attention, this is very serious.
An overview of who is Carlos Cruz Diaz and how his idea came about in an art historical frame. Because of the nature of the kinetic art, a lot of this art are pieces that do not exist today as objects. A lot of my generation or even later generation do not know who were they, what did they do, how the pieces look, why did they do these pieces. It involved a lot of deconditioning from consensual reality, especially at the social and political level. It also has this whole philosophical dimension about being in the world and being in reality through our senses. It's a very fascinating piece of art history. I wanted the artist to work as a team, because that was also a very much talked about modus operandi of people in the 60s. Carlos Cruz Diaz told me he was very interested in quantum physics. Quantum physics and consciousness is really, really a big part of this new age we're in. And it is a very difficult thing because artists or even philosophers are not trained in physics. Physicists are not trained in talking about consciousness. That is one of the things I want to talk about in the class. If you think about it, what is a camera? What is a car? All of these are protractions of our own senses. So I have an eye, but now I have a camera or a telescope. So this is a protraction of my capacity of vision. So the idea of going back to the primary senses and the primary understanding of reality through these senses is so fundamental and so interesting, because it's almost a recipe for testing and redirecting and redrawing and re-representing the whole reality. It's actually an amazing proposal. Diaz said, he was joking because he always liked to giggle and joke, but he said, this is very serious. This is very serious. Because artists have had this amazing position of pioneering new models. So yes, it is important.
It's 3rd of March and we're done with our lecture, and it was very interesting, very intense. Today we were all supposed to present our 10-minute ideas on one of the senses that we chose. And everyone had like something to say about what they had in mind and what they were trying to experiment with. And there were certain common themes that were generated in this discussion. The first thing was the absence of a particular sense. We're talking about deconditioning, so we're conditioned to have all the senses, but if we break one, what would be it? The other thing was like to create this gap of, and the understanding by this gap of how you perceive the sense. I think we're going to start with all these experiments, and it's going to be pretty intense, and I'm waiting for the next class.
Tonight's class we were talking about the new paradigm based on the progression from the 17th century up to the 21st century. We had a couple of presentations, one by Steve Smith on sound, where he showed Ferrari race cars and the sounds they make when they're racing. And then I did a meditation exercise where we came into the blacked out room. I had 3 different incenses burning. And so we sat or laid down on the floor for 15 minutes, a little meditation. Then we did a quick sketch in the dark. And then we turned the lights on and did a second sketch. And then we had a short discussion afterwards. Next week, or the next class, we'll share our drawings and talk about those. And that was it.
Today there was a turn from very conceptual to back to hands-on. I'm very happy about it. Okay.
It's March 31st. With only a few classes left. We have a retreat coming up, but I think most relevant today was how technology is being interpreted by, particularly the 2 different generations. I found myself being younger, having much different points of view than, say, someone who has maybe been a later adopter to technology like the internet. I find that it's interesting, someone who grew up with it approaches it in a different way, whereas someone who had to basically learn it from a different point of view, and how those 2, just by the approach that they have, has shaped how they view something.
Okay, so today we are all in a retreat at the Blackwood Institution Land Education, and we've been talking about how we're practically going to build this labyrinth, and we've came up with the concept of a light shaft in the middle of a sealed dark room where people would just come and sit down and sort of reflect around a cauldron of water that would also reflect the light with a mirror. So we just been talking about how to build it and what would be the best practical application for building it and having it in this space. Okay, so we have decided to construct a journey where we will have that will be developed in steps or in stages, where in every stage somebody will have an experience, and either with an object or an interaction of some sort. And then we're starting off thinking about material. Probably string is the favorite, and we'll see from here.
Okay.
One of the greatest things that I've taken away from this seminar is the idea that one's work can be based around core concepts. I think the fact that the realizations that we didn't have funds to do what we might want to do was somewhat devastating, and the time frame that we had to do this within. I think that for me, coming from a place of doing and taking action, I was very surprised that my ultimate reaction of the progeny of this seminar to be this pedagogical artwork, that I've embraced that, and that I think it's very valid,
a very meaningful way to sum up the experience that we've had. In discussing the kinetic art movements, and a lot of the things that were happening in the 60s, and the discussion of art as experience was very stimulating, and I've gone as far as to sort of conceive my next show sort of around some of these ideas of liberating color from form and kinetic art and viewer participation in my own work. And I'm actually very excited about doing that.
Overall, I feel the seminar was a success. It's an avenue for new thoughts and ideas, and it was really a place to get out of your comfort zone, to kind of strip away some of things that in your past that you've perceived, how you do art, that kind of thing. I was exposed to some wonderful individuals, a very knowledgeable leader, and looking back on my notes, you know, going over such topics as color theory, science, kinetics, mechanical engineering, architectural design, quantum theory, physics, organizational dynamics, theoretical writings, and many paradigms, just to name a few. And this was supposed to be an art class, if you will. So I had a very good experience.
Todos visualizamos aquel halo de luz en el cuarto oscuro, siendo como una reflexión sobre un envase de vidrio que invitaría al público a hacer esta pausa de la que hemos hablado y reflexionar y hacer una introspección. Mi idea es construir un instrumento musical de cuerdas inspirado en los elementos básicos del arpa. Ahora estoy consciente de mi responsabilidad como artista contemporáneo y la necesidad de crear un despertar en los sentidos del espectador a través de propuestas artísticas interactivas.
A painter is not an artist. Rather, an artist is someone who uses paint as a medium for others to see into his mind. And I think there's a huge difference between someone who's just painting a pretty picture of a landscape and is not trying to say something, but someone who is painting a landscape and wants you to see something about this landscape that only he sees, that is something deeper than just a tree on a wall. I think that we have to understand the plasticity of the brain itself, that just by thinking of something, we are physically changing who we are. And everything that we do, we become better at that. And whether that be a positive thing or a negative thing, it affects who we are and how we comprehend what this reality is. I think to begin with, the first thing that we have to realize is the certainty of the quantum illusion, that in essence, all we really have is the illusion of reality. If everything is made of atoms, and those atoms are made up mostly of space to begin with, and even parts of those atoms are never in one place at one time, or never in a specific location, I think we have to realize that what we're seeing is really just the illusion that there is matter there, that it's all one solid object. We're entering this thing that I would like to call the age of artificial telepathy. In a way, that's really what the internet is. It's not so much that it's a computer or that it's a cell phone, but rather it's this idea that our brains are actually intertwined, and that with this instantaneous and free information that we have, it allows us to really become what I think should be a superorganism. People say that human beings are a superorganism now, but that's not necessarily the case. A superorganism like ants or termites work completely together and can completely be self-sufficient with who they are. Today, we're just simply a group of people that are working together, but not necessarily for the same goal. And I think as soon as we realize that we are really one planet, one Earth, we can become the superorganism and really change and actually control our destiny.
This seminar itself is the piece of art that we set out to achieve in the first place. It was a journey both painful and exhilarating, frustrating and fantastic. It was a journey together, but at the same time all by yourself, questioning yourself. This course was much more than just studying about perception and deconditioning and how we perceive things. It was also something really basic, something that was posed to us as a question. What is the role of an artist and an art in today's time? We're entering a new era, and in this era that we live in, time is kind of warped and compacted. Ideas have no permanence. Like he said, there are 5-second revolutions, 5-second celebrations, and 5-second news. And the technology right now is, playing with our perceptions of reality and how we live. As artists, we have to question, and we have to provide people with opportunities where they can confront these discords of reality that they live in. And how can we do that? Well, our art has to evoke very elemental forms, the forgotten perceptions of child that were so beautiful and very basic, primordial, instinctual, that everyone cross-culturally or without any form of conditioning could relate to it. This became the basis of my personal labyrinth of deconditioning. Sight itself is a form of separator. There's a kind of disconnect from object-subject. I was reading a little bit about Sartre's idea of body as an image and body as a possibility. How when we see our body as an image, it is what others see of us, and not a body that we are, that we use as our possibility of living in this world.
One of my initial ideas that I'm carrying on working with was to have a space with softly changing light, so gradual that it would be teasing the senses and your perception. You wouldn't be sure that it had happened. Perhaps even with very low notes that changed also, or a sound that was almost below hearing.
For me, what resonated the most, and I think with a lot of other people, was the idea of the pause. I think in our lives, it's very clear that we are not given that moment of pause, that moment of reflection. Of all things that touched me the most when I went to the Vatican to see St. Peter's Cathedral were not the intricate architectural moments or the Pietà of Michelangelo. I mean, of course, all this is magnificent, but what brought tears to my eyes was that shaft of light coming and crossing this huge huge ambience, and you just stop. That kind of awe is the thing that I would like to bring to the public. I think if we have a limited budget, I would want to do the simplest of all the ideas that the group came up with. A labyrinth made out of a huge, beautiful curtain coming from the top of this building all the way down. And when we get inside, there was that shaft of light that I talk so much about.
This new technology is actually an agent of conditioning, and how our behavior and social interaction is actually now conditioned by the computer. Facebook, we started the class in the middle of what was called the Facebook revolution, or the revolution that happened in Egypt early in 2011. So we talked a lot about how much and how deep our relationship, our social relationship, were molded by the technological world in general, not just by this new digital world, but by the whole city we live in. And we talk about transhumanism, and we talked about what is the future of a society that embraces technology without the consciousness or the wisdom to actually deal with it. I realized how the term labyrinth had to do with the human condition, and that to this human condition there were two sides of the same coin. One was about slavery and bondage, and the other one was about freedom, and that the labyrinth was a metaphor for both, in the sense that you could get lost in a labyrinth, like, Theseus and the Minotaur, the Greek mythology had given a glimpse.